Hey guys, Zach here, back at it again. Today I'm just gonna start with this plane, and I'm gonna need more geometry with it to displace it, and because we're gonna use that to create. We're gonna be using the 3D displacement this time with the shader. So this is all part of the Nodevember challenge. Today's prompt's ancient, so I decided to do the pyramids of Giza. So as you can see, I have all these reference right here with puref. So this program's called puref, where you can just organize and quickly take rough images from the internet and then look at them bulletin board style. So anyways, to set up displacement, make sure its render engine is set to cycles, and under the material settings, once you add a material, you can go down to settings and then change from bump only to displacement only. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and open the shader editor, and pretty simple geometric shape. I think it'll be, I think there's stuff to learn if you're at a beginner level, just sort of figuring out how do we make a pyramid shape and how do we repeat that efficiently. Quickest way to make a pyramid, and at the end I'll be working with adding more interesting textures to make it make it look as realistic as possible. Will be the goal. So with UV, there's two coordinates, x and y, the same as up here. So that corresponds to the space of the texture. This is 2D, so there's no z-axis for this texture coordinate system. So if we cycle through this, here's x, here's y, and here's z. And we can use these two together to create pyramids. So because if we have these gradients in here, and then this is a math node, so you combine single values right here, and we can change it to, let's try smooth maximum, and and notice it's coming from the corner. So we can shift all of this over with an add node. This is a vector math node set to add, which is the default for a vector node. So we can use that to position it. To put in the center, we want to put -0.5 and negative 0.5. So tab just to go to the second line, just like in your average search engine. That saved me a lot of time when I found out how to do that. But right here, you can also just drag these and then enter them at the same time, which is also handy. And so if I add this add node and change it to absolute, we get the reflection there. So now we have a high point to a low point. And let's see what smooth minimum does, just to see. So that's a different result. Right here, I'm going to want to work with this so that the points are emitting in this direction. But black is the darkest point, so the lowest point in it. It's synonymous with the number 0, and as it becomes more white, it becomes closer to 1 in a vector space. And you can have values higher than 1 and lower than 0 if you don't clamp it, and that's what that is. If the values become larger than that, it just clamps it to 1 or 0 if it's too high or too low. And I've also got this map right here, so I'm going to try to follow it as closely as possible. There's some importance to, I think, why they put those there, and they spent a lot of time on these pyramids and the whole layout. So I think it's important. I think they probably put a lot of thought into where those should be placed, and so should we. So this color ramp, I want like I said, white is going to be higher. So if I put that up there, with this vector displacement node, with all those settings that I went over earlier, this is also going to be important. And we need to plug this height map, or alpha, into there. So alpha is another term for that. Here we have a step pyramid, and that's just the result of having not that enough resolution. So we can turn that up in our levels on the modifier right here. We'll always have a step pyramid if we keep zooming in, but I don't want to. I want more control over step pyramid. I'll show you how to procedurally make an alpha that would reflect a step pyramid rather than it being the result of a limitation in the geometry. All right, so yeah, and then change this mid level to 0, so it's coming from the plane. Oh. So when it's at 0.5, it goes to the beginning. So I guess this is fine. And then if we change the scale, yeah, then we have a good height there. But I'm going to keep this at 1 because I want to manage the individual height of the different pyramids. So I'm going to add a multiplier right here, change that to 2 because it looks like that worked, right? Yeah, let's try this. Yeah, so at a value of 1, I guess that's at the base of that right there. And if I, we can just reposition this. The mapping node has different rotations in addition to this, so this part does the same as the location right here. But I think maybe I will use the vector add node because I just want a uniform scale. Because if we looked at this again, so that's Shift S to mix that. Let me activate my shortcut key so you can follow what I'm doing. So Shift S to swap the nodes. That brings up the same menu you used to add a node with Shift A. Yeah, and so if I bring the scale in, you can see how that works. Oh, and we want to, if we're going to have another node, we're going to put that after the transformation, I believe. So now, yeah, so it's scaling towards the center as opposed to off to the side, like the original coordinates would. But yeah, again, I'm going to change that to an add node, so we can just shift this over. So let's try this again. Yeah, so you can notice the difference between these two. So I think to position them, we're going to want to do that. And then if I use another vector math node but change it to scale, you can see how that changes position. Yeah, so yeah, let's look at this top diagram. And actually, we have a pyramid here, so, and we're going to just repeat that a bunch. So really, it's the result of these nodes right here. So I'm just going to select these, and then we'll leave the height adjustment for outside, because the scale, position, and height of these are going to be different for each of these. And yeah, so with Control J, I put them into a frame, so it's just more organized. I'll actually make a group node of these. So the group node simplifies it into one node. You can get in and out of it with tab, just a little toggle. And so we want a vector input just for the position, and then the output, which we will then multiply to adjust the height. So that's as much as we need. And if we go back into this, we can name our node, and if we wanted to, we could add more inputs or outputs. But this is good for what we're going to be doing. So even though this is a color value and this is black and white, but I'm not exact. I don't think there's really a clear way to fix that. So anyway, this item, if I select here, it's a group, names group, but the thing that's going to show up right here is pyramid, yep. And yeah, so if we just get these into position, let's copy this. I'm already realizing we're going to go back to this group to add some more stuff for customization, because if we see this, there's a different stepping for the for these smaller pyramids. If I and we also want to make steps, like I said, mentioned earlier. So actually, let's do that real quick. So if I look at this, I'm not going to worry about the height yet because I'm going to adjust that later. But if I use another math node and set it to floor, and then I multiply that, it sets the number of times I can floor it. Here, it's kind of shifting the geometry around, so I'm just gonna unplug this. Just because I'm short on time and this is live, I'm going to do the way that I'm sure I can do. So I'm going to go to converter and then map range. So converter, map range, and change this to step to linear. So now we can see we can adjust the number of steps. And now we literally have steps on here if we plug the displacement in. Excuse me. And it looks a little, so that's how you do that. And then let's adjust the height right here. But I'm going to be adjusting the scale too, and that's independent of the height with the way we have it set up. So I can put these next to each other just so we can easy access when we're adjusting. So there's a lot of steps on this, so I'm just going to quickly Google how many steps on pyramid of Giza. 203. Okay, so I'm just going to use that right here. Wow, so you can that's pretty smooth. I mean, there's out of all the color values, there's 256. So if we were to go all the way up to 256, we wouldn't really see. Well, I am seeing that change. The more samples we add, the smoother it gets. But anyway, 203 for this. That's a lot. That's a lot of steps. And and if we want to add some on the top tip, we can just use so the issue with these nodes is, if you look at this, the color right here is the same as down there, and that's because it's only looking at it as a plane, so this is like 2D basically. So if I change this to geometry, I can adjust the position, and maybe it's a little subtle there too, but this is like if I look at this, there's a gradient from it being in 3D. And it's down there again because change it to 0. And so if I adjust this gradient, it will affect the top. Let's just shift it up with this. let's actually, we can add distortion if we add it to the vector here. So let's try doing that instead. I think we'll get a nicer result. So with distortion, I always use linear light, which brings stuff above 0.5 up and things below 0.5 down, basically just sort of swirling things around. And so with this Musgrave texture, which looks like this, if I look into this add node, even at a low value, we start getting shifting. And you can fine tune this if you hold down shift, just like that. And yeah, and so let's add it to the top of the pyramid. So with this, if I just press mix, change that to add. So add just sits on top. And we can't really see it here clearly now because it's just a lot of white up there. It'd be because it's a vector, it's more than just texture. Yeah, and then we change this to multiply. So right now, if I look at the side view, let's try linear light. Okay, let's try subtract. That's screen. Subtract. Add should really work. Right. Add some more geometry to this. So if let's try to figure out why it's not adding. Maybe if I multiply this up here. Let's make this a sharper value. This is pretty sharp if we look at this tip on the top. It's not plugged into the vector, no? So this might be a a bug right here, because it's maybe not it just isn't working with the position coordinates right here. So an alternative to using position coordinates is we can just use this mask from in here that we had before. Yeah, so I'm going to, I can copy this node, and then we'll have another gradient right here, and then I can just shift that over right there. And yeah, so that's even more reliable because we're just taking from that 2D texture. So that same thing that we used before. Yeah, and then maybe we can combine it with Musgrave. We won't be able to do it with Distortion unless I can add Distortion to the beginning of this. So if I again just plug this Musgrave into linear light, we can see how that's doing. Increase the detail, dimension, just to give it, experiment with different effects. Yeah, so that's giving a result that we want. And just gonna, so I created a reroute node with shift right click just for easy access to this. So I can just plug that in there. Yeah, so that's working right there. That's working. I'm just going to add it all the way, but then use this multiplier. So I'll have more fine tuning that way. And then, actually, and we could use a multiply add node to do these two operations at the same time. If I use clamp. Maybe I can just use that in the factor. Let's set this to white. Yeah, so that's shifting that up right there. So if I plug it in there. So let's adjust this. So I'm going to reset this. So 1 and 0. So multiplying by 1, it just makes it the same thing, and then adding just shifts it by nothing if you add 0. So we just want as sharp an edge as possible. It's kind of not really possible to get that how it's sort of just extrude outward along this face, but yeah. So now we have one pyramid. Congratulations, guys. And then let's see how we can make all this. So I think because this is all steps, or should be, I'm not seeing steps. I think we were seeing them when we down here. Yeah. Because these are all steps. If there's a texture of white noise. So if I plug this into here, we get this randomness. And if we plug that into, say, noise texture, So noise, if I just look at this, you can use it to make like rough things like this. And if I put this in the position node, this should work. Yeah, so we have this rough texture. But I can offset it with this white noise texture to create some interesting stuff. To create more irregular in the steps. Now so again, I'm going to use that same distortion trick with a mix shader and linear light plugged into a vector, and then just add right here. And yeah, so now you can see all the damage in the steps is more different, and if we just use a slight value, we can make that not so random. So I think there is some commonality in here. You can just like fine-tune that randomness, which is pretty exciting. And there's like, I think there's just variations in values around it, like this area seems more damaged. And I'm just going to adjust that with Musgrave, just to darken some spots. So yeah, if I put this in mix shader and use linear light, that just makes right. So you'll see the result of that right here. So let's review what this does. Plug that in there. So remember this: when you scale things, smaller numbers are bigger than larger numbers. So if I look at this output, we're getting this. If I turn that down, you know, getting a subtle variation. So yeah, so there's a realistic, well, if I say so myself, it's pretty realistic. And if we, yeah, so let's use a principal BSDF and plug it into the normal, but see, this is a shading mess, like, you know, this is totally wrong, the lights aren't well, the light's over there, let's move that light, not the whole scene. So if I put this light, it seems to be showing the texture, but it's not really working correctly, and that's because we need a vector node to convert it. So we're using vector and then bump map right here, and make sure it's not plugged in normal, make sure it's plugged into height. Yeah, and there's there's our pyramid color. Yeah, and actually, because this color value right here is another value, we can use that to create like an alternate noise texture for the color, so that's independent of the bump. So I'll just go ahead and use Y, because when you separate these, XYZ is the same as RGB, as we established with the vectors and stuff. So this is the same as the separate RGB node. Maybe the RGB node clamps things at 0 and 1, and that might be the main difference, but yeah, they fundamentally do the same thing, and yeah, it won't make a difference between them when you use them. Yeah, so let's just try to copy these textures. You know, I'm not bringing any reference in here or sampling from images, just because I feel like it's more creatively fulfilling when you get to choose your own colors. And, you know, just embrace that. It's, you know, if it doesn't look like it, it's because of you. And that kind of makes it okay that it doesn't look exactly like it. But, yeah, and so there we have a pyramid. I think this bump is a little bit strong, so I'm going to turn that down. And then this distance, if you bring it, keep it lower than 1 at least, and then the lower you bring it, the smoother it makes things. Let's add more detail in this noise texture. So turn up this detail. It's just noise within noise within noise. So like detail is smaller than the scale, and then roughness is smaller than that. And that's kind of how that all works. Maybe we do want some more of that bump. I don't know that the steps are really translating. So yeah, I mean, if we look at here, the geometry is smaller than each of the geometry. And to work with that, let's just change the steps on the node, this node. So actually, I'm gonna add an input now to this. So right here, I'm gonna steps. Yeah, so we'll plug it into this. And if I remember serves correct, it's the very last one. Kind of have to squint there. My display doesn't have that great a resolution, so that's how you see that there. And then, yeah, so currently I think the default is 0. In this case, let's just make the default 203 and infinite number of steps. So if we look at this node, we now have this output that we can control, and it affects the result. So now, as I'm increasing this, it's like, oh, we can have more steps. And so right here, something isn't working, so I'm going to undo. So if I look at this, it has 203 steps. What would happen if we changed it to 0? Let's see. So that removes it. If I bring it up, I can adjust it. So right now, this number of steps are like 20. If I change this, so name it steps, and then let's just get out of it and name it first. So 20 is what was working, right? And so let's hope it works. Rewrote node, just get it a little closer, bring it over, and just make sure it's playing the steps. Interesting. So let's try to figure out why this is. Okay, so it doesn't really matter if it's clapped or not. And if we look at this output, oh yeah, because it's the top part that we have here, and this node is still at 0. So I got confused, because these are instanced and you can adjust the values for each one, but yeah, so let's make that 2.06, 206, I mean, and then it's pretty smooth on the top, I think. Yeah. Well, let's actually make this kind of less than it is in the actual. And this distortion is in here, that isn't included once we put that color ramp in there, just to review. And yeah, so yeah, now we have maybe something that's just more identifiable as that, even though it's not the right amount of steps. But hey, at least we made the effort to look that up, right? And yeah, so if we bring this over, and yeah, we can adjust the Musgrave on this. It's not very exact. You could get a little more exact, maybe using vector curves. I used that in, if you watched my painting video, or I mean where I make a Starry Night. I think that's from 2 nights ago. Yeah. I think that's pretty good. So if I look at the top view, let's look at this final view. So this is the middle pyramid that we just made, pyramid of Khafre. So we're gonna make that one next, and then these, and then we'll make the little ones over there. I think from our view, there's some other ones over here that probably, we'll see if I make, yeah, depends on my patience tonight. There's some things I need to attend to, and you know, so if I have this and then plugged into the bump there, we can just copy this over, and because this is all based on the 3D texture of position, we can move this anywhere and it would still have texture. Or even if I went to edit mode, see. So let's add some more pyramids. If I put this into linear light, I just like linear light, I guess. Let's just make it screen and plug that into there. And so we need a position for this. So make sure that's plugged in. And then it's in the same position, so we need to shift it over so that it'll show up. And because we started with this one, everything's going to be based around that. So I'm just going to make that at the center of here, and on UVs, this is 0, 0, this is 1, 1, so the center is going to be 0.5. So negative 0.5. I think we'll bring it in the middle. Let's see. If I position it, let's try to decode why it's shifted over. I think it's because we already shifted over by 0.5 right in here. Yeah, so we actually don't need this node. It's redundant. So I'm going to take that out. And because we don't want to shift over by 0.5 every time anyway, so that's good. And yeah, so we'll shift this up to there. Let's scale this in actually, so 5, yeah, we're going to need quite a bit more room. And if I adjust the size of this, I'm going to have to adjust the scale, the height again, so let's check for that. Yeah, so I think that'll be a good size. Yeah, so like I was saying, and this isn't as high up because the screen needs to be turned up all the way. So the screen makes all the white ignores the black and then brings up the white. It's the opposite of multiply if you mix stuff. Yeah, so just divide this again by 2, I think. Or let's look at these slopes. No, so somewhere in between there, 0.4. Sometimes entering these is faster than just trying to scan through and get the right thing, because this can be a little slow to update sometimes. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you liked the idea, Digital. Welcome back. And you know, it's one of the first things that comes up when you search ancient. So, you know, I was a little creatively bankrupt, so, you know, I turned to Google, and yeah, like, you know, like it's unquestionably ancient. Yes, the -3 worked, and if it's in square, then it should work right there. This distance is a little bit off. I'm gonna let it fly. Hope you guys are all cool with that. Yeah, so now we're gonna make the smaller pyramid. So I'm just gonna copy these and keep them connected. So with this, and then I'm gonna replace this input with this one. So we're just doing the same thing we did with the last one, replacing this. And let's try, if I bring this back to 0, where does it take us? Oh, we lost it. Oh, well, we can see all of them together. We need to use this one to preview it. Oh yeah, so it's in the origin. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's in the same position as the original. So we want to do minus point, because before this 3 worked. So let's try -3. If 0, 0 is this corner, or was it? Oh, that was -3, so let's bring that 3, we'll bring it in this corner. Cool. And then let's scale it again. I mean, I guess I'm saying again because these were already scaled, and then so this is, all these transforms are on top of the original transformation. And let's just get some reference on scale. So what is this, like about between a half and a third. Yeah, and that looks about right. And then, yeah, so it's actually a little closer, and then, yeah, and then we'll just add 3 pyramids on the corner here. Let's adjust the height on this one. Oh, we got nothing. So we can just multiply right here directly. So this is that texture for that pyramid. And uh-oh. Oh yeah, because we need to plug this back into this add node. So what is this adding? Oh yeah, it's this what sits on top of this. So just to get this out of the way, this could actually exist earlier in the node group, so I don't have to keep replugging it into that one. So I'm gonna plug that in there. Whoa. Oh yeah, so that was right, and then this one we're gonna take out. So this is the scale for those other ones, and this one. Remember, so we used this to shift the top of this, because when we looked at this, we were like, oh, let's add some detail right there. And I felt that way the last couple of days. Creative blocks can be difficult to overcome. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, especially, you know, yeah, just, it's weird times, and I don't know. I think, yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I I wanted to make YouTube videos, and like I was always like worried about like, you know, how I'd look, and then what you know, if I'd look professional, and that's like, but and then I just, you know, this challenge thing has been pretty easy because I just go in with the attitude that like whatever happens happens. Yeah, so we can pretty much add node to any of these, and it'll be the same result. If you think in algebra, like, it doesn't really matter where you add things. I mean, well, yeah, there are certain cases to that, for sure. I think we're shifting this up right there. So, like, if I multiply this, oh yeah, we have a multiplier right here. So if I adjust that, yeah. So we can adjust that right there. We can shift that up. Yeah. Yeah. Well, not that you need to share anything if you don't want to, but I'm curious what kind of creative stuff you're working on, or if there's anything that you'd like to work on that you've been finding a block on. Yeah, so we have that on the tip right there, and because we adjusted the scale, let's bring that down. It doesn't match this exactly, it's just because we're using this random texture. We might just run into something that happens to look like it. Oh, that's kind of close. Let's fine tune that. Ah, close enough. Okay. So we have this smaller pyramid right here, and yeah, and remember these ones are gonna need a different amount of steps. Oh, so yeah, we can just make this 3 steps, and then, well, it has these smaller steps in it. Okay, I think I have an idea for that. Yeah. Okay. I'll show you what I'll do. Yeah, so we have all this set up. This is all good, and we can bring that in here. And wanna You're working on a library mage academy? Oh, because so you do architectural design? Cool. My yeah, my dad is an architect in Chicago. Yeah. But you're like a designer for that, so you have to be pretty creative about that. I guess I don't. That's not. I mean, I'm curious, but like, you know, it'd be nice to know what kind of challenges that entails, because I'm kind of, I personally don't really know. So oh yeah, and now we have 2 pyramids on top of each other right here, so let's fix that. Oh. What should I put here? Well, this should be at 0, and then these will, yeah, so this will bring it down. Wait, let's try top view. It's better judgment. So I guess bigger numbers, it's all backwards, so bigger numbers bring us over there. Bring it down. It's just the scale. It's awesome, like, you know, all these faceless people on these live streams, you know, have something, like, have complete lives that, you know, I have no idea about, which, you know, privacy is cool, you know, important, but it's like, wow, you know, it's a lot going on. Let's see. Let's add a light here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to combine this with another pyramid, and this other one I'm going to change the number of steps. So yeah, I think I just use a multiply node to limit it. So it'll still have steps. Let's say each step has 3, and there are 3 groups of 3 steps. So I'll make this one 9, and I'll make this one 3, and let's see how that looks. Yeah, so that's it's pretty close to what we want. I think something's kind of funny about the offset here. So what's a mage academy? Out of curiosity. Let's see how maybe if I just add these, change this to mixed nodes so we have a factor that we can adjust. And if I put the 3 pyramid one first and just add this on top, we can just use the offset texture to create the impression of more steps, because we're not going to get that in displacement anyways, because there isn't much of a slope to work with there. Let's change it to add, or how about linear light to interesting. If I look at this, let's look at the difference between the gradients. So this is 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, and then this. So it actually gets bigger when it does that. Weird. If I plug this into the factor, maybe it'll affect the top the most and this out part the least, and I mean this edge not at all. And that's kind of a quick and dirty way to get the impression of different steps. For some reason, it's giving us different results than I want. So track by 0.5, and while adding, that's the same as linear light, but yeah. My dad's currently working on an airport safety protocols or accessibility stuff, but yeah, he's found that kind of he likes to joke about how he's working on this big project on his kitchen table, but that's just how things are now, right? Okay, so this actually makes sense because we're adding the steps up here and then down there. So maybe we should try subtract to bring it down. Well, it looks better when we do nothing. If I adjust that, we can let me just make it subtle. And what if by the amount we added a gradient? So if I had this, then change the number of steps to like 200, so it's like kind of smooth. or we'll hit the coordinates in a different place. All the vertexes that sit on these coordinates. Yeah, but it's all happening on top in between right here, so we're not going to get stuff on the sides. Yeah, so that's it's a limitation. Yeah, so now we're seeing, with the steps added, we're getting different heights there. Maybe I can change the shader so that we get steps throughout and it's constant and doesn't rely on each individual piece. Yeah, but it relies on the coordinates here, so. Because position wasn't working right. So if I separate this and z-axis, we have a gradient here. If I use this vector map range node and change the number of steps to, well, change the step to linear, so we can adjust that. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. That's good. Just a nice round number right there. And plug this white noise texture into there. Because that's what's, offsetting the noise texture. And then let's increase this offset. If it goes past 0.5, it's not very clear where it repeats. If I turn that detail up too much, it's just going to be noise and noise. Oh, awesome. Cool. This must be fun. Yeah, so far, yeah. How do you like, do you at least enjoy the work you do? Or, well, I guess this isn't a public space, so, but, yeah. Yeah, so let's just forget about this next node. The steps right there. This is too big, so let's adjust that. For some reason with wave textures, if I'm going to use that to darken or just accentuate each of these edges, maybe I'll lighten it or something. Yeah, I'll lighten it. So I'll just use add for that. If I just plug the z-axis in here, I should. Wait, but this is based on object. That's not what we want. Yeah, that's not. Remember, we use this to mix colors. It's plugging in a noise texture, not a coordinate. So if I use position, and then separate x, y, z, and yeah, just plug that in there. Let's see, but we don't know the height of position because that's just based on the world of position. So. Because I'm just going to manually figure it out. So if I do 1 here, let's try pi. Yeah. If I look at this offset, oh, let's turn this up. So we want randomness on each step. Okay, and then let's turn this up to match. So if I just look at this geometry on the edge, you know, if I knew the range that I was dealing with right here, I would not be doing it like this, but yeah. So with the side view, see. Or let's do it a different way. So we want to get the top edge of this. If I use, just take a look at the normal output. No, so yeah, everything's facing upward, so I can't. Is it the same on the geometry node? Yeah. So with our coordinates right here, we have a position, and if I do I can do some math, yay. So if I have a gradient, this gradient, and then I subtract, if I have a whole value, which I don't have the whole value for this. If I do have this position, I'll put separate on the Z1. If I separate this, you can notice we're getting a gradient now from each of these. And if I multiply this, I get, we might be able to make part of it darker. Let's see, if I flip this. Multiply what I'm subtracting. See what happens then. Oh, this is getting a little tangled. So I'm previewing this, and so 0.03, maybe 0.25, 0.3, and then multiplying that range. So we're getting some kind of even. I'm kind of eyeballing it a little bit, but we'll be able to isolate the tops, I think. So, well, if I look at the height of this, maybe that's how I can get that, because this does go to 0. This is 0.35, right? So that's probably what this number is, 0.35. Okay. And this is, yeah, this, I don't need the multiply node now. Well, yeah, I can use that to remap it. So, and that's going to be the number of steps in this. So that's, yeah, so 50 steps. Let's see what happens if I turn this up to 50. Wait, not that number. Where was I? Right here. Okay, let's see. Okay, and it's based on, it's offset. It's offset a bit. So, but we have, at least we have it isolated right there. So is this the top of it? No. If I shift it up a little bit, maybe. Now if I add it to this, let's see if we get the results we want. Yeah, it's more pronounced, that's for sure. On this little one, oh yeah, so these coordinates are reliant on the height that I set for this. Okay, so let's just use the value node so that these are all consistent. So if I input, yeah, shift A, input value. So we had 50, let's just label this so don't forget, it's just steps. But this is going to be different right here. And this is going to be universal. Oh, yeah. Huh? Well, if this relies on everything before this, yeah, this isn't working, so I'll just position, and then we know that, so we know the height is 0.5. Wait, what did we? 0.35, yeah, and so that's our height. Oh, and we gotta separate this, right? So plug that in Z, bring that down there, and we actually want to divide it to counter that multiply. It's just shifting it back from what we multiplied it to. Yeah, so we have the gradient that we want, and then we can use, well, we used the step converter steps, yeah, map range, and then step to linear. And then we'll make that 50, right? I think that was the number that we ended up using. And yes, that's looking good. And if we subtract that by this axis, we will get, so we have, I'm going to make another gradient here. Let's see, how do we, let's figure out what we're subtracting. So math node subtract. Does this work? yeah, so now we have a gradient for each of these. Whereas, do we multiply it? No, so, and then, but just like before, so this was the number of steps, and then there was another number that I was that I was using and thinking about, and that was the seed for numbers. Okay, we had the number of steps, and then we had the height. So assume this should be 50, which is the number of steps. Yeah, so height was 0.35. That's what this number is, and then this number is 50. Yeah. So, oh, so I need to multiply this also. So we're bringing that down there. And I think that is getting us the values that we want. So that they're all, that's where we put it so that they're even. And then to remap that at the end. So it's subtracted, that's how much you need to subtract it. You multiply what it's subtracted, shift it over, and then we can counter that. So let's multiply it again. Yeah. And then, so this is a very narrow range, and that's why I want to multiply that to widen that range. And when you just multiply, just what I'm used to for adjusting. Absolutely, it's fun and challenging at once, and you've been using Blender for 1 year, and now I haven't decided a game engine to use once I have the assets ready. Yeah, start on any game engine and get stuff ready. I think there's a lot. I mean, I think. If I were to recommend a game engine for somebody to start with, I'd probably recommend Godot. Just because it's user-friendly, and if you import from Blender with GLTF, if you have certain naming conventions, hey DSO Dragus, welcome to the live stream. You can just bring stuff in like already with collisions on import. You could have a naming convention with the physics with a tag that says wheel, and so when you import it, it has wheel physics and stuff, and yeah. So there are little things where it works better, and also if you ever made that game, you would and sold it and made more than a certain amount, you wouldn't have to pay Godot for anything, which is kind of one of the main differences from those softwares and why they're not open source, because they still make money from the things that do make money. And the language it uses is based on Python, but you can also use C# just like you would in Unity, or I guess Unreal uses C++. I think they all have visual programming stuff now, though. Like they have all those features. Nice thing about Godot, though, is it's very light. It's a very small download size, but it has all the features. It's kind of the Blender of game engines. Now that Blender doesn't have a game engine, because, rip on that. Blender used to have a game engine, but it was too difficult to maintain at the same time, and there were other open source projects, so they were like, oh, we'll scrap it, and it's kind of coming back. It's going to come back in the form of Blender's interactive mode, which, has yet to come, but it's adjusting this. Well, we have streaks going across. I think from a distance, you know, what's the difference? So I'm just going to check out the end result. Let's multiply this just to make it interesting. That is not interesting because we need to plug this one in. This is the wrong color. What is this color ramp? Yeah, there isn't like, I haven't seen a video about the name conventions on its own. Maybe I'll make one. I think it's an awesome feature. If you go into the import page, when you go all the way to the very bottom, it uses GLTF, which is an open source file format for 3D files. You know, everybody else uses FBX because that's a standard made by Autodesk. But Autodesk kind of changes that in small ways every once in a while, so you kind of have to keep updating. And so I think there have been issues with like importing rigs and stuff. There's a really awesome add-on for Unreal, developed by Unreal for importing scenes in Blender directly into Unreal immediately, and that's really, yeah, it's pretty cool. Like from what I've seen, we can have the noise effect how we're adding this, so we don't have like such a straight line. So if I bring that in there. So yeah, for a previous job I used Unreal, and I think that has like the best viewport out of the box. I mean that they all have the same surface qualities and lighting stuff, and I mean there's all that new stuff about like real-time ray tracing, which yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I guess Unreal and Unity both have. It's kind of unclear from, I'm not sure from what I've read from Godot. I think graphically it's probably further behind, but not by a noticeable degree. And if you were to make something as a beginner, it'd be fine. And then eventually, I mean, look at Blender. Like, you know, 2 years ago it didn't have Eevee, and now it has and that's like a render engine that no other 3D modeling program has. Well, Max and Maya at least, or Houdini. So Max, from what I've seen, has like an added render thing that you have to pay for that doesn't have all the surface qualities like reflections and subsurface. But yeah, so I mean, I think the more you can do to support open source projects, and then there's just a community of people like willing to help, and I mean, that all sounds good to me. But let's make this kind of brownish. The black, it looks a little, it's just burnt toast. Yeah. This isn't a factor, so that's done with me. So let's just copy this. So that's making that part darker. But yeah, then that tagging thing I'm talking about is at the end of the import page on the Godot documentation. I sound like I really know my stuff. Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. So I should make a video telling my whole story, but when I was when I was growing up, I loved comic books, and I would draw during class like nonstop, and my teachers thought it was, said it was kind of a problem, and I think it kind of was, got a little in the way of my learning, and that was my first love for art and stuff, and I took some after school classes, drawing and stuff, and then did one sculpture, did one stop motion. Then I took a summer class right before the start of my freshman year in animation, and and I really liked that, and it was all these different types of animation. We did 2D, 3D, claymation, different thing every week, kind of intro stuff. And, but yeah, actually way back when I was 9, because my dad's an architect, he was like, oh, there's this program that I don't have time to learn. He's been using AutoCAD since it was created, you know, in the 70s. But SketchUp it had a free trial. It was owned by Trimble at the time, that was bought by Google, and Trimble bought SketchUp back, where they re-separated or something. Not sure exactly what happened with that. And then, so SketchUp I used for a while. You couldn't do, well, yeah, you can do, it kind of has the same, you know, SketchUp still doesn't have, like, you can't do animations in it, aside from, like, switching scenes and, or render real materials without a paid plugin. But I modeled my school and a bunch of different stuff, you know, just random things, buildings, and then I really liked, yeah, and then I downloaded Blender junior year in high school, and I immediately uninstalled it because I hated the interface. I was like, well, I mean, I looked at it. I was like, there's this cube. I can rotate around it. Pretty much can't do anything else. And I just came across it because I was like, you know, I would spend a lot of time just looking on YouTube, watching random videos on, I'm going to make this sand because it's kind of a brighter, different color. And maybe we can also have some variation in the height there. And so anyway, I came across Blender then, and I didn't know anybody who was using it. So, and then in college, I think it was again sophomore or junior year. I'm 23 now, so I just graduated a year ago, and I was there was like a club that was like a video game club. People talk about making video games. Very rarely get much done, you know, just kind of have really big ideas and not a lot of time or maybe focus, or, you know, but, you know, it's college, people are busy, or, well, yeah, and so I was taking a 3ds Max, no, I was about to take the very first class at University of Iowa, where I went, in 3D design, in virtual reality, and there were some 3D design classes there, so, which is just like models that you build, but also they like 3ds Max classes. So they had that on their computers, so I used that, and I studied that, and then during one of the meetings, somebody was like, oh, yeah, well, this programming, this guy was this amazing programmer, and he was using Blender. We're just kind of sitting side by side, and I was like, huh, I kind of like what he's doing there. And I feel like I've met quite a few people where they learned about Blender through a programmer, because like the whole open source community thing. And I immediately loved it, and I spent a lot of time at the library, and just using it when I could. And then at the Visual Arts building, I could just, if I stayed indoors past 10, I could just stay inside, which it's not a great, well, it sounds kind of crazy. Maybe it is a little bit, but like other artists would do that too. There would be like, just a group of people hanging out late at night, just getting work done. And then, yeah, and so I've been watching that. I watched when I was learning nodes, I just followed, would just mindlessly watch those like, Blender Guru tutorials, and be like, oh, I don't know how to do that. More like fun than crazy. Yeah, I guess for me, yeah, I guess I was like, yeah, this is fun. Like staying late at night and yeah, not so fun in the winter in the Midwest, where it's pretty cold when you go out, and but yeah, it's you know, it's you want to find a balance in life. I think this the funnest approach is you know, you might love 3D modeling, but you might not love doing it 24/7. You know, you might love doing it for fun, but not as a job. That's always something to evaluate, you know, when you're doing stuff. So yeah, I think this will be my sand. Let's make a color from that height. Maybe I'll use this as a color input, so I can just have a different seed for the color and the factor. X is the same as the black and white factor right there, so I'm just gonna make that there. And if we look at this, but yeah, and I really learned it in a week. I've said this before in previous streams, just like, if you look at the hotkeys, it's pretty clear what Blender prioritized. They removed quite a few, some that I missed, and then you have to add it by, you know, taking something and then right-clicking it, and then assigned shortcut would be here, but this has a shortcut right here for this example. But yeah, and then it's you know, I follow the Blender Today live stream with Pablo Vasquez, and you know, that would keep me updated on stuff. And I just got really interested in accessibility with art programs that are free, and I'm gonna make probably a series of videos on that just once I find my footing, and there's some other things in the line for that. So after college, I worked at this design studio where I used Blender and Unreal, and then I was working at a non-for-profit after-school program where they were teaching animation, and they happened to use Blender. And I was teaching with this guy who was a senior artist at a game studio, and had been working there for like 30 years, pretty big one. But he, you know, and he just kind of gives his time for this not-for-profit. And it was funny because, he uses Max most of the time, but he teaches with Maya and Blender. But like, I'm so used to using Blender all the time, so it was just kind of funny how we bounce off each other in the class. And I was the assistant, so and just there to support the stuff that he's doing. And that was a lot of fun, just like figuring out ways that you can use technology and art to help people, just kind of what I'm kind of trying to figure out. So if I use this height, I want it to be on this ground, but I don't want it to affect the pyramids. So maybe I have these alphas right here, and if I just take that greater than node, and then use a mix shader, and then bring that as close to 0 as possible, but not 0, and then use this mix shader right here, and then plug this in right there, and then again this going there. So now we have this going the wrong way, so let's switch these two. One day I'm gonna actually figure out which one instead of guessing, but I've been able to get by so far otherwise, so and then I guess, is this plugged into the height right now? No. This is so I'm gonna put that multiply in there, and then this will go into my displacement. so that the ground is full of noise, and yeah, it's overblown. So that was expected. I expected that. And if I multiply it, can decrease that. Let's just bring it down to 0 and make it flat for now. So we can just work with this. And let's plug this in so we can actually see our surface while I adjust it. If I bring this up, yeah. So they kind of have a trench right here, so which we don't want. It's better to bring it down. Oh, too much. 0.02. Let's try that. And 0.1. Oh wait, this is worse, so let's go negative, right? And so let's bring it back to 0. I forget. So if I bring this up, okay, so that's getting warmer. And then 3.5. Oh no, 3.5. I think that's close enough, yeah. And then let's just copy this guy, right? We forgot to do that. So let's take, where's he? Or she? And take that. Wait, what is this plugged into? Is this plugged into anything? Oh, I guess I was in the process of making these pyramids. And then I'll just, we'll combine that again with the screen. And these are all going to be the same height, so I may as well just plug them in right there. So right now, there are going to be 2 of these on top of each other, so it's, they should, like, build in height. Oh, yeah, so this is just 3. Yeah, no, I made that for other reasons. And now they're the same. And if I, let's look at the final alpha output. If I just plug this in and bring it over there, yeah. But really, if you want to learn a game engine, just any of them would probably be fine. Just don't talk yourself out. Don't waste time thinking of what. When I was making this channel, I wasted a lot of time, I think, thinking about like what name I was gonna use for the channel and like what format and how I'm gonna edit, and then but I really just needed to make stuff, and yeah. So there's this one channel I think I've actually mentioned on this before because I don't know, I just really like it. It's Mazizi's, and he uses Godot, but you can apply most of his videos to different game engines. Like you can most tutorials that are done well, and he has this suggestion that you start with like an hour long. So you spend an hour making a platformer, and then there's this video where it does like a platformer in 10 minutes, and then if I just shift that over with that one. Okay, so yeah, just start short. Like, see if you can make a platformer in an hour, and then see if you can make a game in a day and make it more interesting, and then give yourself and then once you have that, you could probably jump to like 2 weeks to see if it's what's going on here. Oh yeah, so we want this not on the multiply. That's why it's not appearing. And then plug that into screen, and then yeah, start small, build it up. we have this here, and there's 2. There's supposed to be 3 here, and it might just be the position right on this one. Oh yeah, because we need to, what I meant to do is plug this into here, so that shifts it. I thought it would shift over by the same amount. Oh yeah, because there, but that's a different amount. Oh well, this value is different. Why is that different? I'm kind of clumsy sometimes. And if we look at the map, is this accurate? We might have to shift all these little pyramids over. Yeah, great. And yeah, that'll be simple. And yeah, they're smaller and further. Okay. So the steps are going to stay 3, and then we'll adjust the scale and the position. We can just shift all of these over here, fortunately. Maybe I should adjust the scale first, because I forget if this will move it while scaling. Good, it doesn't. So now it's bigger. Oh, it's super hard to see this, right? So let's bring it. This is the displacement, so I can tell this is the alpha output right there. Yeah, if I just scale this, so smaller number will make it bigger, and yeah. So let's just look at that comparison. So, have you guys thought about ever putting out videos or making content? Or like, could you ever see yourself doing that? Oh, and these are actually smaller. Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, just try it out, get it done. And also, there's openart.com, I think, open game art, and you can just use sprites for that for your first thing. Just if you want to just practice the programming and don't need to focus on that, because everything there is patent free. Like you could publish a game and sell it without needing to pay any royalties. So if you want to do that, and yeah, Crit is great. That's my favorite video. Graphics editing program. You know, like as opposed to GIMP. Oh, so this only copies single values. Okay, when I paste that, that's why I was tripping there. And yeah, let's adjust the scale on this one. Yeah, I'm glad you found that helpful, and yeah, Godot's a quick download. I think you can actually even use Godot in the browser now, which is awesome. Games from Scratch, which also has really good news on open source technology, did a video on. He does videos on like different updates for different programs, and yeah, and he did one on. What am I saying? Yeah, he did one on how Godot now works in the browser. So there's just a URL you can go to for that. Not sure exactly what that is and haven't tried it. Well, I think I went on the page briefly once, but I think also GD. Well, there's the channel GD Quest that does tutorials on Godot. It's probably the best Godot YouTube channel, but there's like GD something, which is the game engine for that you can use in the browser, and that's pretty kid friendly. Like, or just beginner friendly. Scratch is a very simple kind of node based programming thing online, where but it's kind of like blocks, rather than like connecting things with the web. So you kind of put things on top of each other and in each other. But yeah, like, if you make a platformer, you don't, and like a lot of games, it's just walking around and you interact with something, like, and it plays an animation. Like, there isn't, if you know how to do those things efficiently and in an organized way, if you have that practice, you don't need to, in theory, know that, you don't have to complicate it that much. And maybe you can just, it sounds like you're, maybe more focused on the art side, you can just focus on that. And yeah. Yeah, so I have the 3 pyramids here. I wasn't planning on doing the whole city over here. Yeah, it's not in the title, so yeah. I don't think I'm disappointing anybody, maybe with, I think people will be like, whoa, yeah, but I think, what I can do, okay, let's just try mocking up like just a fake city there, because in my Van Gogh painting I was doing a similar thing. I was going to try to avoid it, but I'm just going to use, so with this UV texture, use a new map, and if I use a gradient texture, just going to use that sphere, and position it with vector add, negative 0.5 to center it, or no, we'll scale it in first, and then we'll see what that should look like. So if I bring that over there, and then yeah, distort it with linear light and use texture noise texture, yeah. And so we have kind of a random blob there, and if I plug this into a Voronoi, let's see, if I plug it into this Voronoi, so the Voronoi is kind of random cells. Let's see if any of these can help us out. Manhattan is kind of like blocky. Yeah, well, yeah, let's see how it looks. And then maybe vector map, I'll rotate this 45 degrees because these slopes are going at an angle right here. Let's keep it at the same height. There's nothing showing up here because this default, it needs a texture coordinate plugged into it. 45 did nothing. That's because I plugged in the location. 0, and then the Z is going to be 45. And yeah, just plug it in there. And okay, I thought about it, but I don't think my skill levels are high enough yet. Oh, skill levels for what? Oh, just to create a game, yeah. Mazizi's made if you search 8-minute platformer in Godot, there might be something on, YouTube videos. Okay, yeah. I was saying like that if you needed help with a platformer, that could help. But there I have the pyramids. I could have just done that. But yeah. I use the Blender video editor. I think it has some limitations. I wish I could record directly into it when I'm recording audio, but I record all with OBS, and that's what I use to stream here. But yeah. I've waited a long time to make videos, and then realize I just waited too long. Let's try using this vector, see how that looks. Wow. Yeah, it's not a city, but I kind of like it. It's right here. Color. These don't look anything alike. I guess the height, it cuts off at those points. And then if we add these, so the randomness with that, get this random height right here. This doesn't need to be colorful, but I think it will just interpret it as varied height. Maybe I'll just convert it anyway. So convert RGB to black and white. Oh yeah, Davinci Resolve is amazing. I actually have that installed on my computer. If I look at the desktop, well, I've got a lot of windows open, so I'm not gonna bother. But yeah, that's a great video because it originally was a compositing software, and then they just kept adding stuff, and yeah. And it's great that they make it available for free. It'd be great if it was also open source, and they had all those other features available in it, but like most of the features that you really need are in it, and then they have the really cool stuff in the paid version, which is it's fine. They're running business; they need to keep themselves going. Yeah, this is probably the best free version for video editing. I guess as you can see, I'm so comfortable with Blender, and a lot of the hotkeys carry over, and especially with the power sequencer add-on, I really like using that. Yeah, so we have random city here. I'll mask it out with this. And then what did I? Yeah, so. I don't know why this scale is... Oh, because grain texture is randomly up there. I'm not sure how that happened. Yeah, but yeah, Davinci Resolve is great. I used that for my first sculpting time-lapse video when I was originally editing it. But then when I made a meta strip, it copied my whole video, and then I don't think I'm saying anything actually helpful right now. So forget what I just said. I did something, I used it. But yeah, really, like, yeah, there's so much you can do with just like cutting footage together, and I think the audio is the main overlooked thing for people, and doing noise reduction is like an essential step in like all my tutorials to get things more crisp. I mean, like the fan on my computer. I don't know if you can hear right now, but I think it's pretty loud, and so I try to avoid that. Look, there's our city. My city. Yep. Yep, and then let's see what it looks like with the material. And we still need to, we made a ground texture, didn't we? Yeah, somewhere. Where did I put that? Where did I put the ground texture? Well, it's plugged in this alpha right here, so this is the height that goes into the displacement. And just next to this, it just looks so random. Maybe... just increase the scale. Maybe I'll squish it a little. Yeah, oh, beautiful. Beautiful city. If you're gonna make a game or something, or whatever, maybe make it more intricate than that. I think an awesome tutorial to make would be how to make a city really fast. So maybe I'll do one of those later. But like, make it actually make sense. Like, have not just like random particles or something. That's nice. It's not too loud on the stream. Good to know. I think I'm using the sound gate filter also. Maybe it's, so when I'm not talking, you don't hear in the background. Maybe. I can't remember if that's set up right now. Yeah. So if I look at this, yeah. So that's fine. Then we'll combine it. We have that. And then. So let's review this picture, right? And this is actually showing because I think this is on a slope right here. I don't have that here, and if I tweak that, I'm gonna have to readjust those. I guess they're just being added to it, but yeah, that's kind of messed things up. So I went to that, and this is, I think it's too tall now that I realize. So I think if I multiply that, just the multiplication. It's cool. And I guess the least I could do is just, yeah, I would just add more to have a gradient over this. So if I use this alpha mask to get the height for each of these, and then multiply node is greater than. Yeah, you know, if it masks out the bottom part, that's okay, because maybe it's just a little sand. It's sandy, you know, sandy spreads and accumulates in the crevices, like the really low parts right there. But if, yeah, because this noise is a little random. But that means we have the ground mask right here, and it's not too far, right? So one of these is going to be it. Not that. Not that yet. Let's go back. Okay, yeah, so I have this mask. I'll just use this. Bring that in there. Oh no. Do I remember? Oh yeah, it's still sampled right here. So we can just go back to that. Boom. And then we'll use this mix node. I guess I'll just try to, yeah, let's try a screen. X. So separate X, Y, Z in that direction. Let's use this gradient again, and then plug that on the edge. And then we really want it. I mean, all this area is kind of white, and then it starts, but yeah. So that's fine, and. So it'll only affect the ground area. Oh, so let's just swap that. So this is now less than. principled shader. Yeah, we now have these sandy beaches. Wait. Pyramid. Hey. I just finished. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'll show you. Yep. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, let's create a little more variation here. And then, actually, we could even maybe multiply this by noise texture. Let's create more variation there. And let's see what this texture looks like. Actually, let's do this before this. Put it in there. And yeah, so if we sample that, let's add detail to the noise. Voila! Yeah, big difference, right? Yeah, so there you have it. We've created the pyramids. Whippy. Thanks for watching. Great conversation. Thanks for coming back on again, DSO Dragus. Great conversation, digital design. Great engagement. Really nice. And thanks so much for watching. I'll hopefully be back tomorrow. I'm traveling, so I'll be on my mobile computer right now. I'm on my desktop, so yeah, it'll be a bit of a different setup. And thanks for the tips. Yeah, glad to be of help. Just gotta figure out how to monetize it. Yeah. Yeah, only partially joking. And yeah, so take care, guys. Bye.